Welcome to Stitches in Time, the podcast discussing Doctor Who the way it was meant to be watched, in chronological order, one clip at a time, starting at the Big Bang and ending with the heat death of the universe. I'm Becca, the Matrix Archivist, and I spent the last 12 years of my life meticulously editing the entire televised Doctor Who universe into chronological order.
I am Mandy. And I used to always have to use the energy of a dying star for my phone calls until I switched to T-Mobile. Now I get unlimited talk and text, and none of my calls drop when I'm trying to tell Billie Piper how much I love her.
So yet another, I'm glad we're getting back into having sponsors again. It's really nice. Thank you, T-Mobile, for sponsoring this episode of the podcast that you've never heard about. I use Verizon.
I do not use T-Mobile.
Oh my goodness. And today we are talking about Doomsday.
But just the saddest part of the entire thing.
Right. But not the sad part you're thinking of, listener.
Do you just want to watch David Tennant cry, but not entirely know why? Yeah. Stitches in Time is for you.
Yeah, we got you. Yes, this is 57 seconds of the end of Doomsday, in which David Tennant is saying goodbye to Rose, but it's just the bit where he's on the TARDIS and he's talking about how he's destroying a star to make the phone call happen.
And it takes a lot of power to send this projection. I'm in orbit around a supernova. I'm burning up a sun just to say goodbye.
But he does get free nights and weekends.
Yeah, exactly. So actually, I was thinking about this episode and several other Tennant episodes, because I keep seeing people who hate the new Doctor are really upset that he cries all the time, and I'm like, David Tennant was the biggest crier in the world, and y'all didn't have a problem with that.
The goddamn gift set of Tennant and just the slow little tear of this episode was just 47% of Tumblr.
Yeah, that seems accurate.
Get out of here with Oda Shooty cries too much.
It's so crazy. People are like, oh, the show's gonna get canceled because the Doctor cries now. No, actually, that's actually one of the most popular errors of the show is when the Doctor cries a lot.
It's generally considered a good time. In fairness, so when we are recording this, season 2 has just dropped, and there is a moment, it's very early on, where we get the dedicated him crying, and it did feel like they were filling a quota. It did feel a little bit of okay, check that off the list.
Shooty has in his contract of just okay, I have to shed 3 tears per episode.
He's sponsored by eye drops.
You know what? When we were watching that episode last night, sorry, I know this podcast is very anti-tangent, but so yeah, we watched the season 2 premiere, and during that shot, I was I don't know, I can't help but think about behind the scenes things, and I'm oh, I wonder if they put eye drops in his eyes for that. But then they had him in frame long enough that no, those are real tears, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, there's 20 minutes of footage of him just pushing it out.
Yeah.
He's no guys, I got this one.
So, yeah, the random number generator has placed us in 4306 BC, which I feel like we've been in the 4000s BC for a long ass time, and I'm let's get to it.
Yeah.
Let's get through it.
And the fact that it's largely random number stuff. It's not like the show has a big thing in 4000 BC. I feel like it's mostly just kind of been the random number generator has been really into that number.
Yeah, we've been... The last, like, not random number generator thing we had was the caveman episode, which was episode of the podcast number 29. And now we're on 40. I think this is 49. That was 20 episodes of the podcast ago. Was the last time we had a non-randomly number generated time on the thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna need this show to label their timelines a bit nicer, and also if they're going to have a conversation, try to keep both of those people in the same time zone. Because this is Doomsday is a devastating episode. There is a reason why it has stayed in the culture, and why when they were going to bring the show back, this is the bit that they're going to bring back this version of the Doctor and heal. I mean, they already have done like resolutions and kind of like, oh, we'll make it a little happier. We'll make it a little happier. They have done fix for this episode so many times. That's the true...
Every time Billie Piper shows up again, it's just like, oh yeah, oh, she's in the end of season 4. Oh, she's in the 50th anniversary. Oh, which is great. I mean, honestly, yeah, we're not gonna really get a sense of that in Stitches in Time, especially like all of it is so separated, and like we're actually gonna watch. I was thinking about this when I was watching Doomsday to prep for this. You know, there's the famous like scene when they're both like on either side of that wall in different universes.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously I do have like alternate universes in the timeline, but it's still in the continuity of the years. And there's a line in, I think it's Army of Ghosts, that says, oh, now Pete's world is like 3.5 years ahead. So when we get to that wall scene, we're just going to get David Tennant alone at that wall, and we're not going to see Billie Piper.
David Tennant just spends so much time talking to himself in the Stitches in Time.
That's true. Yeah. He's done it. I think every time he's shown up so far, he's been talking to himself in one way or another.
I will say that it is nice, Stitches continuity wise. We finished with Troughton. There's all of this weird, the TARDIS is getting sucked into the weird thing that we talked about last episode.
Right.
And it's kind of implied that David's the one doing it.
Yeah, poor Patrick Troughton is just spinning around this horrible supernova while David Tennant's just trying to make a
blowing it up. Because he's got to make a phone call.
Yeah, it's super important. Who is the phone call to? We may never know.
Which is, I mean, that explains how he knew that this was an area that he could get energy from and be like, hey, I remember being stuck at that supernova. What if I use that for my own purposes?
Thank you, great intelligence. I'm kidding, of course. It's just David Tennant throwing himself off. This is where we get into the like bootstrap paradox of like, if he remembered being trapped, but then like, or being thrown off course, and then does he remember this? Does he have to go cause it happen? It's like the Pompeii episode. It's like, oh, there are some things that I have to make happen in order to exist or whatever. Timey, and to a lesser extent, wimey. Yeah.
Which we're in a new era of the show, and timey-wimey is officially cringe.
Oh.
We did it, y'all. We bullied Tumblr out of timey-wimey.
Yeah.
Davey says it's cringe now.
Yeah, that was another delightful moment in the episode that we saw last night. It is really funny that like timey-wimey is like because that is a Moffatism that originated in Blink, which was Stephen
Oh,
Moffat's episode.
yes.
So maybe Russell T is just like, I don't want to deal with this anymore.
Steven, you're burnt.
I don't want this eternal blemish on Doctor Who anymore. But Mavity he's okay with. That's the new timey-wimey.
Yeah.
I honestly I love the Mavity joke because only because it's only ever like mentioned in passing. It's not like addressed. It's not a big deal. It's just like, no, this is just the word we used.
Yeah, I appreciate the kind of like the limits that they've kind of put on it. And also just the fact of like, I am sad the fandom is not as big, but in terms of the cringe level, I'm a little happy that it's smaller and that's not, people have not formed their entire personalities around Mavity the way
Right.
that they did around timey-wimey and wearing a fez and bow ties are cool and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because I think Moffat was so proud of timey-wimey that like when he became showrunner, it was like every other thing is somebody says timey-wimey.
It's just leaning in.
Oh God. Mandy, when you first watched this episode and saw Rose's departure, how did you feel? Because I feel like Rose is like a little bit of a contentious thing. Some people love her, some people hate her. Where do you fall on the Rose
So
situation?
I had a lot of mixed things, and I rewatched this not too long ago. The first time that I had watched this, like again, this is such a prominent thing on Tumblr, which is how I got into watching the show. So I
Right.
knew about I didn't have the context for why it was happening, but I knew that I knew that this would happen. Um which I don't think ruined the experience, but it did kind of like it's very much I'm watching this as part of a marathon and there's more stuff. So
Yeah.
it's not as devastating as I feel it would be if you're watching this kind of like week after week. Like I know
Mm-hmm.
that there's more coming and I'm kind of getting to the stuff that's more coming. And my
Mm-hmm.
initial watch, I didn't dislike Rose, but she wasn't my favorite companion when I initially watched. And I honestly just think that it's almost like it's a kind of timing thing. Like I'm talking right now about timey-wimey being cringe, but the cycle of time is always that the thing that was popular like 6 to 8 years ago is the most embarrassing thing popular, like the most
Right.
embarrassing thing possible, and then you get more time and you become nostalgic for it. Like there's that kind of like the gap between when something is popular and then it becomes popular again because you're nostalgic for it.
Yeah.
It is the most devastating. You hate it. It's the worst. So cringe. And that's where timey-wimey is right now. I'm sure we'll go back to it and it'll be like,
Sure.
oh, we all loved it. And like people will pull up this recording and said, Mandy, you fucking hypocrite. And I will respond by pulling up this piece of it and be like, I always was a hypocrite. I'm acknowledging I'm a hypocrite. But at this point in time, because I'm watching this in 2010, 2011,
Mm-hmm.
and Rose is kind of the epitome of like early 2000s, it's a little cringe.
Sure. Yeah.
So I never like I didn't quite I think it was like kind of it's too close for comfort. And so it's like I wasn't a big fan of her. Rewatch that I did a few years ago, which I started getting into, and then Ben was like, "Oh, this is a perfect opportunity for you to also watch Torchwood." And then I tried to watch Torchwood, and then I stopped watching Doctor Who. Uh, that killed the rewatch. I need to just go back and be like, I'm just not going to watch Torchwood until we get to the Stitches in Time and I can go back to just rewatching Doctor Who.
Yeah.
But going back and rewatching it and really kind of, I think, giving Rose kind of the attention that she deserved. I really found myself liking Rose a lot more, and she is one of my favorite companions now, in part because she is so normal, and that was something that was a little, again, it was like a little cringe when I first saw it, and I was waiting for kind of the more like, I was waiting to see Donna and I was waiting to see Amy and all
Sure.
this other stuff. Like, I'm kind of just getting to the next thing,
Yeah.
versus now I'm kind of like taking that bit and going back to her. And it's also kind of a thing of like, now when we talk about Rose, it's the bad wolf stuff. It is like the importance of Rose and her just kind of in
Right.
like this like this like immortal being kind of thing. But
Mm-hmm.
Rose was just some chick. She was just some normal chick.
Right.
Uh so going back, like, it means so much more when I watch it now than admittedly when I watched it. Like, I will fully admit I did not give Rose the credit that she deserved,
Mm.
but now I really appreciate her.
That's awesome. Yeah, I went in, I mean, like, I think I started watching, like, I started from the first episode of the new series, but like by the time I started watching, I think it was like the Martha season. I think it was like season 3 or so. But like, I also was not plugged into any of the like behind the scene. Like, I didn't know what to expect. I was just kind of going in blind. And so I was pretty devastated by the loss of Rose. And actually, my best friend, who I was watching it with, really hated Rose. And we've never seen eye to eye on that. And now we're not friends anymore. No, that's not true. I mean, but like, also because of that, because I wasn't like in the fandom until later, I don't know how people felt about Rose like at the time that she was like first a companion. Like, I know that like some people were a little, especially like people in the UK, were a little bit like, she's a pop star, I don't want her to be the companion. But then like, I think she did a really good job, and I think she surprised a lot of people, pleasantly surprised a lot of people. And I don't know, I like her. Sue me.
Yeah, I also kind of feel like, again, in the presentation of her in Tumblr, she is kind of boiled down to gift sets, and in the gift sets, it's just like, it is this scene. It is the Doomsday thing. It
Yeah.
is it is anything that's sad and heartbreaking, or it's the bad wolf stuff, which is not a good representation of Rose Tyler. And I think that does uh it somewhat dilutes it makes those things less impactful, because you're kind of, on the one hand, like, those have less of an impact because you know that they're coming, and you're
Right.
also taught to kind of put those scenes up on a pedestal and not really think about, because most of her characterization are a lot more like casual, subtle moments.
Mm.
uh and you don't really think about those because it's like, oh, well, he's just going to be so sad. Like, she's kind of just the thing for the Doctor to be sad about, which is
Right.
not a fair representation of what Rose was to the show, because she, like, being an introduction to the new series, and we need someone who is like very of the current period that this is coming
Yeah.
out, and reacting to this kind of classic series as someone who's very current and contemporary
Hmm.
is like, it's a good thing, but then in kind of fandom is kind of just relegated to, and the Doctor's really sad whenever Rose gets brought up.
Yeah, I do. And I think also, like, I think one of the things that also kind of gets lost is like, what Rose also like in universe means to the Doctor, because like, I think it's really easy to like kind of dismiss her as like, oh, it's just like a love interest, and like like, oh, people have all these opinions about whether the Doctor should be, aromantic or asexual or whatever. Also, like, people get bugged about like the fact that, oh well, like he's like a Time Lord and he's seen all these things, and she's just like a teenager, like she's just a 19-year-old girl who like, why is he like so into her? And like, I mean, older men, younger women, there's a lot of problematic shit going on. But it's sort of like they have this friendship that kind of goes beyond just like a normal love interest thing. The reason that she means so much to him is like, I mean, when Christopher Eccleston shows up, especially now with all we know about like the Time War and everything, like when Eccleston shows up and like comes into Rose's life, he's just committed genocide. And like, I don't know how, like, we don't know how long he's been dealing with that beforehand, but like, I do get the sense that this is the first time after that happened that he's felt safe enough and close enough to somebody to bring them along with him as like a companion and like continue like traveling like he used to.
Yeah, this is something, it's very, very world weary. And it's like you can make an argument about the kind of like manic pixie dream girl, but they're almost manic pixie dream girls to each other.
They kind of are.
Because like Rose is the manic pixie in terms of like, oh, you're so very world weary, whereas I have a certain like lightness and currentness to things, and I'm seeing the world in a very new way that the Doctor kind of needs at that point.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, like Rose has a lot of her own stuff where she's feeling very stuck in her life and feeling like, oh, I'm going to be very stagnantly in this kind of role. I'm not going to be going anywhere with my life or doing anything important. And then here's someone who's going to take her on all of these big adventures. So they are like two. You can make an argument that either of them is the manic pixie dream person.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, you're right. They both are to each other. That's just like, that's what it is. Yeah. Also, fun fact, just looked it up. One of the reasons that like, oh yeah, let's talk about Rose, because he's saying goodbye to Rose. Rose isn't in this clip that we're talking about. And also doesn't show up until her first appearance is the Girl in the Fireplace, which is in the 1700s AD. So it's going to be a little bit before we see any Billie Piper on screen.
We can talk about her now. Thank God for tangents.
Exactly.
Check out the Stitches in Time spin-off show. We're just going to talk about Rose Tyler because we can't do so in the context of the show for 30 more years.
It's true. It's so true. I do want to mention we do have a listener question, Mandy.
Oh.
It is from a listener named Dino Andrade, who asked about the like classic series titles. We had that whole conversation about like, oh, the blank of the blank or whatever, Planet of the Evil, Daleks of the Terror, so I did a little bit of looking around, and classic serials, I just looked at like when they started doing like titles for the entire serial and not just like individual episode titles like they did it for most of Hartnell's run. The most common thing is and then two words, like The Pirate Planet, The Twin Dilemma, The Leisure Hive, The Armageddon Factor.
The Macroterra, is that one?
That's one of them, The Macroterror.
Yeah.
So yes, the Ice Warriors. So that was there are 29 of those, and then the second place is the blank of blank. There are 20 of those. So like the Seeds of Death, the Curse of Peladon, the Hand of Fear.
The Curse of Peloton. So they predicted the Sex and the City revival?
Yeah, apparently. There are two Peloton stories.
He
'Cause,
predicted the Sex of the City revival and that Mr. Big would be in Doctor Who.
Interesting. In third place, we have 16 blank of the blank. Genesis of the Daleks, Terror of the Zygons, Warriors of the Deep, Attack of the Cybermen, Mark of the Rani, etc. And then in fourth place, we have just one-word titles. There are 13 one-word titles like Castrovalva.
Yes.
Underworld, Kinda, Terminus, those. And then there's the blank, the demons, the Silurians, the Dominators, the Moonbase. And then it's blank of blank, Planet of Fire, Caves of Androzani, City of Death, Horns of Naiman. So those are the top ones there.
Really underrepresented verbs. It's all kind of nouns.
Yeah, it's all nouns. It's like the noun, or the adjective noun, or the noun of noun, or noun of the noun, or noun, or the noun, or noun of noun, or adjective noun is the next one, like Black Orchid, Ghost
We
Light,
got
Time
some
Flight.
prepositions.
Mm-hmm.
Some articles.
The blank of the blank is, there are only 4 of those: the Power of the Daleks, the Tomb of the Cybermen. There are also only 4. There are 4 stories in Classic Who that are 2 nouns smushed together to make one noun, and they are Earthshock, Snake Dance, Time Lash, and Dragonfire.
Snake Dance, Dragonfire.
I sometimes forget that you have not necessarily heard some of these titles.
No.
And then there are only 2 that are noun and the noun, like Time and the Rani and Delta and the Bannermen. And then there's the blank in space. There's 2 of those: the Wheel in space and the Ark in space.
I mean, technically, most of this is in space. You could take all of the other titles and add in space to them.
In space. The Space Pirates in space.
The in space is really implied in most of them.
I do like that in space, putting anything and calling it in space makes it seem like a Saturday morning cartoon of like, it's Scooby-Doo, but in space. Like, anyway, so Dino, I hope that answers your question.
If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the form of a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts.
Indeed. We do have another one, by the way. We have another review. I feel like I should just be eating up time at this point. We have a review. This is it's 5 stars. It's from a user named Mandy Queer Solid, and she writes, "That's not how you pronounce." I'm gonna say FLCL again, but I'm happy to be corrected because it's something like foodly coodly or something.
So it's supposed to be like fully coolly, like full and cool, but with a Y at the end. But unfortunately, because it is from Japan, you kind of have to say it in a weird, possibly problematic accent. So it's footy goody.
That makes sense. So it's not that I pronounced it wrong, it's that it's spelled wrong.
Yeah.
Because with my knowledge of how Japanese works, it's that like every letter in Japanese, at least the hiragana, katakana ones, it's either just a vowel sound or a consonant and a vowel sound.
Yeah, it's like a full, like an actual noise.
Or just that's another one. That's
yeah.
But yeah, so it should be spelled like FULI Kuli. Fuliculi.
Yeah, it's also like I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it's always spelled like it's not like they ever put it in hiragana or katakana. It's always
It's always in English.
yeah, it's
Always in-
always just those letters.
Oh my
But if
god.
you said it wrong, the internet would bully you.
Amazing. Thank you, Mandy. Thank you for bullying me so that the internet doesn't have to.
Yeah, that's my job. I'll bully you first so the internet doesn't have to. I sound so much like my mother right now. I have to tell listeners, if any of you have children and you have the idea of, I have to tell my middle school child that they look like a fucking dork so that other people don't tell them first. I mean, I have problematic feelings about it because guess what? She was right. She was right. But also, I have an anxiety disorder.
Yeah. I remember one time I was talking to my mom and she was like trying to like I think she was just trying to like connect with me like of like tell me what's going on in your life. And she was like, "Do you like, do you have a crush on anyone or whatever?" Like, cuz I was not very vocal about that with my parents. And I finally caved and I was like, "Yeah, I have a crush on somebody." And she was like, "Oh, who?" And told I told my mom who I had a crush on. And she sits there silently for a second and then just goes, "Well, yeah, I think you should ask her out. I think it's good for you to like get used to rejection."
Oh, burn!
Yeah. Hey mom, sick burn. And look,
There is nothing like a burn from your mom. That's also one of the things appreciating Rose Tyler is that her mom's a fucking bitch.
that is so true. That's true in the best
And
way.
I did not appreciate that in my initial watch of how much of her is being defined by having a mother who's a fucking bitch.
Yeah, as I get further and further into my transition, I don't think I've related to anyone as much as I've related to Jackie Tyler.
Which is fair. I love Jackie. It's a great character. But also she's a fucking bitch.
She's such a bitch. She's such a bitch. I love it.
It is like again in the things of like where Rose is, she is not simply just like a manic pixie dream girl who has nothing. Like she is kind of the defining focal point of the series. Like she is the protagonist through it.
Right.
And it's so much of she does not believe that her life is going anywhere, in part because her mother instills in her the idea that she's not going anywhere.
Yeah, that's incredibly true. It's going to be really interesting watching it this way, watching it that era of Stitches in Time, because it's just going to be like, we're going to see Jackie Tyler get married, briefly talk to her daughter about her dead father, and then like we're just going to see like the way that Rose's like absence or whatever is like affecting those around her. And I think that's maybe the most interesting part of like the Stitches in Time edit is just like watching those episodes, like modern series episodes in that order. The only bit of behind the scenes trivia I had for this was that so obviously this scene on the TARDIS is like intercut with the scene on the beach where they're saying goodbye and the doctor's like a hologram or whatever. And during this clip he's like, hang on, let me boost the signal, and he like gets out his sonic and he points it at the TARDIS console and boosts the signal. And of course when they were on this beach they had to like match that, do the same action. I guess they had forgotten to bring a sonic screwdriver prop. Like the art department had like not brought one, because they were keeping everything hush hush. I guess it was like a smaller crew. But Phil Collinson, the producer, apparently just like had a sonic screwdriver on him. Like, it's like, all right, cool.
Sometimes it pays to have fucking dweebs on set.
That's true. That's very true.
That's the real reason, like, when people talk about, oh, you have to hire fans, you gotta hire fans, and they're always like, because they know the continuity. Fuck the continuity. The reason why you hire fans is because they're gonna have a prop when you need it.
They're gonna bring... There's part of my brain that's like, yeah, I bet Phil Collinson had a sonic screwdriver in his pocket. I also bet he had like 3 sonics. You know, I bet he had like a Sylvester McCoy one, and you know what I mean? Like, just in case, just for whatever reason.
Got some celery if you want that too. I've just been packing in my lunchbox just in case.
No, we won't need that till next year's Children in Need. That's okay. Yeah, that's all I have to say about Doomsday. I mean, it's not all I have to say about Doomsday. It's all I have to say about this 57 seconds of Doomsday. Yes, please join us next week where we are discussing the clip that comes immediately after. We're not jumping ahead in time at all. We're just talking about The Runaway Bride.
Oh!
Yay! Thanks for listening to Stitches in Time. Music by Becca McGlynn. Art by Mandy Oquendo. Logo by Ben Paddon. Produced by Becca McGlynn and Ben Paddon.
Email us at matrixarchivist@gmail.com.
We might have had, there's a dog outside, and then I guess when Ben came in, DiGiorno left, but now he is on the other side of the door, and he is meowing now.
I have not, I don't know what kind of like post-processing is going on your end, but like I've never heard any meowing or like even planes are kind of hard to hear on your thing for some reason, which is great.
Because like I'm not doing anything.
I wonder if it's just like the difference between like there might be like a setting in Audacity that you have that I have, because I'm recording in Logic Pro because that's what I'm more familiar with, but like it might just be like a default setting thing.
I think honestly it's just the mic that I have is shittier, so I'm just recording less overall.
I mean, well, now we have the same mic.
Oh, now we're, yeah, but mine got a lump in it.
Oh, I see. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Making some ASMR here, just touching my mic lump.
Oh, baby.
There's one tiny little gap in the universe left, just about to close.
Yay.
He is just steady screaming out there. He's like, meh, meh.
That's hilarious. I love it. Oh,
like Becca was in there.
My best friend Becca.
She was gonna smack my butt.
He was so happy with all the butt smacking I was doing last night. I'm glad to have done it. Yeah, that's all I have to say about Doomsday. I mean, it's not all I have to say about Doomsday. It's all I have to say about this 57 seconds of Doomsday.
This episode is cutting out the 37 minutes of weeping that we did.
Yeah. We just cried, and at one point I just went over to Mandy's house and we just held each other for a while because
it was very sensual.
It was so sensual, and then Ben walked into the room and they were just like, "What are you doing?" And we just both went, "Doomsday!" And they, joined us in the weeping and the hugs and everything. So
it's actually the plot to the lesbian porn that I'm writing. It's just people who get together to weep over an episode of Doomsday, and then they make out.
Yeah, an episode of Doomsday, our favorite TV show, Doomsday.
You just watch various series that if they have an episode named Doomsday.
Yeah, which probably
My new
a bunch
podcast,
of
Doomsday
them-
Podcast.
I bet you could do quite a few of those. Honestly, I bet you certainly a bunch of like sci-fi and fantasy shows. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure Buffy has an episode called Doomsday. I'm sure.
Or
Star
you
Trek
do it
has an episode called Doomsday.
to the to what you were saying earlier, a podcast called The Blank of Blank, where you just watch things that are titled The Blank of Blank.
The blank of blank. Listeners, thank you for listening to this episode of Blank in Blank, a Dr. Blank podcast. And
I love these Mad Libs.
that's what we should have done for our April Fools, is just do a Mad Libs podcast. Should be like, oh my gosh, this episode was so adjective and I felt feeling about it.